right, are we now live streaming? Are we ready to go, Kelly?
Yes, we're now live streaming. Sorry, there's always a sound delay that happens right as we get started. So
No worries.
pause there.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. We have quorum, so I'm going to call roll. When you hear your name, please get off mute and say present. Okay, Andrew.
Present.
Shannon.
Present.
Kelly.
Present.
Brandon. Abiola.
Present.
Hassan. Tashandra.
Present.
Melissa. Sydney. Bruce.
Present.
Martinique.
Present.
Katie.
Present.
Cindy. Okay. Did I miss
No, I'm sorry.
anyone?
I think Melissa, I don't know if you heard Melissa say
Oh, I didn't
present.
say present. Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else that was missed or came on after I called the roll? All right, wonderful. We are ready to begin. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes? I'm sorry, no. Do we have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I move that we approve today's agenda.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Wonderful, thank
And
you.
excuse me, Vinette. We do have to make an edit to the minutes, but we
Okay.
can move to approve them with this edit, which is that I accidentally left off Kelly from the individuals who are present. So
Okay,
I think as long as
fantastic.
we move with that edit, then I can update it.
Okay. All right, then moving on to this next item, do we have a motion to approve the minutes with the edit of adding Kelly to the roll?
I move that we approve the minutes adding Kelly to the roll.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Well, thank you all. Okay, we can move into the leadership report. I'm handing it over to you guys at the school.
All right, thank you guys. Rachel is not going to join us this morning. She is sick as a dog at home with a fever. So she might pop in here at some point, but last night I talked to her and she was not doing well. So I will go through our highlights, and then as you can see, a few faces that some of you guys know, but our assistant principals are on here to give you an update on their grade bands. We were really excited to take you on a school tour this morning, and that is not going to happen, obviously, but hopefully we'll figure out how to make that opportunity available in the next month or two so that folks can come in and see kind of the great school tour that we're having. And I think we've hit a really good stride so far. So our high school transition is happening right now. That's our first highlight on here. Our 8th graders have been visiting schools, having schools visit us. We have 22 of our 47 students fully applied. February 1st is our deadline. And so we have our new director of outreach and OST, which is out of school time programs, but she's been taking the lead on our 8th grade transition. And we have a new advisor model this year, which is great. So pretty much all of us on the leadership team, and then some of our other teachers and social workers all have about 3 to 5 kids that we're working directly with to support in that process, which has been a new program and a really great experience for all of us. We have got a whole bunch of staff engagement events that have been happening this year, and we're seeing just a lot of positive feedback from them. So we had a wonderful holiday party. We recently had a hot cocoa bar that our 2 engagement chairs walked to the school building on and invited teachers to come out in the hallway and enjoy a treat. We did a sneaker decorating party in November. So we're trying to, on a monthly basis, do something that is just fun with our staff to kind of build relationships and make sure people are having a good time. This year, we also have a new parent engagement committee, and they are kind of figuring out what works this year. I think they got in with a huge event to start the year, which was a clothing drive, and now we're trying to wade our way through all the donations. But they have really built our parent resource room up very strong, which we also have a partnership with the Capital Area Food Bank, so that every week it's open for parents to pick up clothes, food, toiletry items, pretty much, hopefully, a lot of what they might need. We have our new content leads this year. So I don't know if we've talked about them a lot yet, but at the end of the year last year, we got feedback through the year that teachers really wanted leadership opportunities. And we definitely wanted to share the wealth in terms of opportunities to organize and figure out what teachers and families wanted at our school. So each of these new ones, these engagement committees and the staff chairs are new roles. And then additionally, we have a content lead role. And so what they're doing is they're working with teachers within their content and their grade bands. So there's a 4 to 8 ELA content lead, and there's a 4 to 8 math lead. Then there's a K to or a pre-K to 3 of the same thing. And they're leading PDs on about a bi-monthly basis. And it really is geared to what teachers feel like they need and want right now. And it's giving people a great opportunity to have some leadership, do some observation of other teachers. And I think that's been one of our big successes this year of creating opportunities. I'm letting a few board members in as we go to Vanette, so we might want to add them to your role. Additionally, Mr. Banks is on here. He could talk a little bit about it, but he has worked really hard on more teacher pipeline opportunities for the school. So we have Howard University and American University formal partnerships, in addition to the Trinity University that we already used to do to staff student teachers. So we now will have 3 universities staffing student teachers. I think next week or the next week, Mr. Banks can correct us, we've got our teachers starting from Howard University. So we'll have 3 student teachers in the building. And our goal with that is more broadly to build a teacher pipeline, but also at Perry Street to build a teacher pipeline. So we get people in who are getting trained, getting familiar with our students in our school, and hopefully looking for full-time jobs in the fall. The other piece we have continued is our high impact tutoring this year, and there should be a news story out really shortly. We had a visit on Friday from Lauren Lumpkin of the Washington Post, along with Aussie and the City Bridge City Tutor team and Blueprint team, and we got to do a tour of some of the tutoring that's happening in the building. They took a lot of pictures. They interviewed Rachel for a while, and we talked a lot about math interventions and what we're doing as a school to address the major math deficit that has existed post-pandemic. Alexandra, do you want to click on unless anybody has questions about our highlights? Okay, so we have got a few members of our leadership team here with us today, and they are pictured in the slide that you've seen a couple times probably, but they come with a really wide variety of experience to us, and some of them were teachers at PSP first and later admin, so feel free to ask questions about that. What we've asked them each to do is just really briefly introduce themselves and then share a program highlight for their grade band and then something that they're really working on. Our hope was that we got to connect this to the school tour and you guys got to see a little bit of this in action before they spoke, but they can still share the same information with you and answer any questions that you have. I know I saw Miss McCaskill on here. I believe I do. I see her. Yes. Okay. So go ahead, Miss McCaskill, introduce yourself and then share a little bit about what's happening in your pre-K to K band.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Danielle McCaskill. I'm the assistant principal for pre-K and kinder. So this is our second year for our pre-K program. We're fairly new. I think one of the main benefits that we're seeing is that our program is a multi-age classroom. So our 3-year-olds and our 4-year-olds are in the same class together. The goal of it was so that, while they're in pre-K, they have the same teacher for those 2 years to build those bonds. And we are seeing the benefits of that this year. The teachers and the students are very close. The families are very close with the teachers and have those great teacher, parent, family engagements. We have monthly, I'll say bi-monthly. We have our celebrations of learning where the kids are working on their projects from their different topics and the parents are always coming in and supporting the students. And so that's been one of the best highlights, I think, of our program so far. Another benefit is our class scores. Last year, half of our teachers had never had a class observation before, so it was new for most of our teachers on our program. We were able to score 2 out of the 3. We were able to score above the required score. So for social emotional report and support and the classroom management, we were able to score above. And this year, we're going to continue to work on like our teacher student interactions in our classrooms so that we can, grow that instructional support score. We are at 3.1 and the requirements of 4, so we're only 0.9 away. So we can definitely do that. And another thing we'll be working on is our enrollment. So we're a little bit under our goal. So we're going to keep social media updated and getting some new signs out in the community so people know where we are and who we are.
And just in case anyone is curious, so CLASS is the state assessment, or we can say PCSB's assessment of the pre-K program. And it's an observational tool that was developed at the University of Virginia, where trained observers come in and score very specific categories that they see based on interactions and observations in the classroom. And what Ms. McCaskill was talking about, oh, look, Alexandra also put it in the comments, our benchmarks. We are still exceeding the average in our state for all of our scores, even though we are looking to grow in that one particular area right now. And we were able to exceed the prior scores that we had from our Apple Tree program. So we also just see continuity and growth, which is great news. Do people have questions for Ms. McCaskill?
Well, one quick question. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the delay. I was shoveling snow this morning for myself and neighbors. Nonetheless, the class observations, is this a one-day observation or is it over the course of multiple visits?
So each classroom has one day where they're observed. They'll give us like a testing window and they'll let us know like the week prior when they're going to come. And then on each day, one class will get observed on like a Monday. Another class will get observed on a Tuesday. Throughout that week, each class will have a day.
Okay, I guess I'm just asking because heaven forbid it's a bad day. So just trying to see if there's like a composite or a balanced or leverage, but okay.
No, you raised a great point. It is very stressful for teachers.
And it's
one time over the whole school year for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all about the interactions. Like the day last year, we did have like children, being themselves. But it's just about how the teachers react. So even if a student was having like a tantrum or upset, it's about, oh, like, how can I help you? What do you need? Obviously, we don't like yell at the children. We just get down to their level. So it's not necessarily how the children act or behave, because they're always going to be children regardless, but more so how the teachers react to children in any state.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. McCaskill, since so many parents have been keeping their children out of school in pre-K, which is part of the challenge of our enrollment, have you guys been seeing any particular challenges coming up with students who are just starting school for the first time in in kindergarten, because they haven't had those years of pre-K with their families keeping them at home? And if there are any challenges, how have you been dealing with those particular challenges?
So from this year, our enrollment, most of our pre-K 4 students did stay and come to kindergarten. A lot of them are coming to school, even if it wasn't necessarily a requirement. So after 3 days of a student not showing up, the teacher will call, I'll post a note on Dojo and kind of just probe hey, where you at? We miss you. And they usually show up the next day. And, we just ask for excuses. If something's going on, just tell us and we'll help you the way we can.
I think also maybe Vanette was talking about just in general, kids who come in with no school experience too, right? Like kids who, and we've seen just a lot more people opting for daycare options instead of a traditional school pre-K program. Ms. McCaskill, do you know how many of our kindergartners came in this year without any prior school experience?
We had a few. No, I feel like none of them, even our new students, they were coming from a previous, a different school for pre-K 4. None of them said that they kept them home. We might get that a few for our pre-K 4 students, their 3-year-old year, they kept them home. But even our new students that came this year, they were just transferring from a different school.
So we're not seeing too much of that. We are seeing even in older grades, though, kids who spent a couple years homeschooled, and some challenges with that for just families adapting and changing. But I think we definitely are trying to figure out still where all the kids are, right? There's a vast amount of pre-K spaces left in the city that are not filled right now. Okay, well, let's move on. Ms. Vallant, I see that you're on here to introduce yourself, your time at PSP, and what's going on.
Yep. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Ivy Vallant. I'm the assistant principal for our first, second, and third grade classrooms and teachers. This year has one of the main highlights for me are the teachers and their collaboration among the pairs. So this year it feels like they are really working together and planning. If you go into one second grade room, the other room will be doing the exact same thing within their content blocks. And then within that, the interventionists that pull the students for lab time also are really working closely with those homeroom teachers to make sure that they are all aligned. One of the things, and we hit on it earlier, Kelly did, as one of the new things, is the content leads and the professional development. So the content leads within our grade level is really providing really strong teacher-led professional development. And I think that's really helping the collaboration among teachers as well, because it's streamlining the instruction across the grade levels. And so you can really see the positive effect that has on students when, they're learning one thing in one classroom and then, they go into the other one and it's the same thing and the teachers are all on the same page. So, and then just a little observation anecdote that I have is in first grade, our student culture is totally off the charts. They are so excited about learning. So last week I was in a first grade classroom, Miss Hallam's. I was observing her math lesson and she started out with, "All right, guys, get ready. I am so excited to tell you about what we're going to do today." And the kids are all, they're all heads down, shaking. And she says, "We are going to learn how to subtract from the teen numbers." And the class just exploded. And I think that's just like a great example of the kind of excitement we have within our students for learning, especially in that first grade and second grade classrooms. I think they're really just, the student culture is really strong there. So one of the things though that we are working on is third grade. Our student behavior is, still kind of recovering from having a full virtual kindergarten year. Some of that social emotional learning that they missed there is really starting to catch up. And so, regulating emotions, the social interactions between students, I think that has been my biggest thing I've been working on this year in third grade. But luckily, PSB has clinicians, 5 of them. And so, we have a boys' lunch bunch that meets 2 times a week, a girls' lunch bunch that meets 2 times a week, one-on-one counseling for those students. We also have some of our clinicians going in and doing whole group SEL with them. And so we're starting to see progress. But that is one of our challenges this year, is those third graders, helping them to just regulate and have the same enthusiasm. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Ivy. Any questions for first through third grade?
A quick question in regards to the point you just mentioned. Are you all providing some professional development for the teachers to help address some of that emotional intelligence that they're experiencing with the third graders?
Yeah, and actually I have been talking with one of our clinicians. She would like to do something. We haven't done it yet. As of now, it's just been kind of one-on-one with teachers with whatever is the conflict that they're having, or working specifically with that student. But I was talking with Miss Lopes, who is one of our social workers, about putting in one of those professional developments with those teachers specifically.
And what Ivy does do is, or Ms. Lant does, is coaching every week. So every one of those teachers is meeting with her once a week, having an observation and getting feedback and, support with whatever they do need. And it might be delivering. Second step is our SEL curriculum, or figuring out how to incorporate it into their classroom. But so some of those resources do exist for them that are trying to support teachers' learning too and development.
I had a question about you mentioned the students, the boys' lunch bunch, girls' lunch bunch, so forth. Sort of what happens in those? Is it bringing the students together for lunch and they have, discussions about issues or anything like that? But yeah, you could sort of explain what happens with those.
Absolutely. You're correct on that. So the lunch and recess break is an hour. So the students go to a half hour of recess, and then the clinician will come and pick up 4 or 5, depending on the size of the group, but it's the same every week, every day. And she or he brings them into their office, and they eat lunch together and they talk about things that are bothering them. But then there's also like a pre-planned lesson that the clinician will have. So a couple weeks ago, she told me she was working with the boys on expressing when they're frustrated. What are some of the strategies they can use when they feel frustrated? And then, like, they'll work with each other, and one boy will tell them, here's what helps me. Maybe it could help you. And so they kind of build relationships while also helping each other.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks, Ms. Volant. We can always go back to more questions. And I actually want to share a little bit more about the structure of our leadership team after Mr. Banks and Mr. Sellers share. Mr. Banks, go for it.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to meet everyone today. My name is David Banks. I am the assistant principal for grades 4 through 6. This is my 3rd year here at PSP and my first year as an assistant principal. I'm very excited about the impact that we're having this school year. So I want to show off some of the exciting things that's happening. Kelly had mentioned earlier today our newly established teacher pipeline and partnership that we have with Howard University and also with American University. And we're really excited about this because the teachers that are coming in, the student teachers that are coming in will actually start this week, depending on how the weather is going to be. And we really placed them with 2 very, very strong teachers. And we did this for 2 reasons. One, so that they could get a chance to see what it's like, what a good classroom looks like, what it sounds like whenever a teacher's in there supporting the students, and also how do they respond to the students when they're having a good day, and also if they're not quite catching a particular concept. So we're hoping that'll be a good use of their time as far as them learning and picking up the skills. And then hopefully by the end of the year, if they are good and we feel as if they'll be a great fit, we could possibly think about transitioning them to becoming full-out teachers. And so we're excited about that. So that's Miss Moy, Miss Dustine, and also Miss Heath. Miss Heath is our math teacher, 6th grade. She's a phenomenal teacher. And also Miss Moy is our 6th grade ELA teacher. And that particular grade level has been doing a phenomenal job this year, all year long. And Miss Dustine is our content lead teacher. I won't speak too much about it because that's she's upstairs with Mr. Sellers, but she does phenomenal work as well. And so also we mentioned earlier today about our content lead. Our 4th grade teacher, Miss Robinson, has been doing a phenomenal job with providing professional development for all of the math teachers. And this has been like an interesting year because we have tried something new this year as far as like with our intervention blocks and our teachers trying out new strategies and new ways to connect with our students. And so she's been doing a really good job as far as going into classrooms, making observations. I work closely with her to try to figure out what's the need, as opposed to just taking a concept and just throwing at the teacher. We try to figure out where, how to meet them halfway. So she's been doing a phenomenal job. Her last session that she had all the math teachers get together and just say, hey, what is one particular lesson that you did really well with the kids and what's something you could share with all the teachers? And we got some really good feedback with that. So outside of the teacher pipeline, outside of the math content, we were also, as a school, we were visited by an organization called We Need More Thinkers. And it's an organization that encourages the love of reading for all of our students. And we were very fortunate to receive 100 books that were donated to the school. including some books written by Danielle Clayton. And so we have it was a very exciting time. And we're excited about that, to be able to get like new books into our classrooms, to be able to help out our students. And I want to say one area of growth that we have between grades 4 through 6 will be our fifth graders. We have a lot of students there with a lot of emotional needs, and they're learning. And I will say, from the beginning of the year to this part of the year, things have gotten much better as far as like having students, whenever they feel a conflict is arising or something is bothering them, they're expressing themselves in a more positive way. And I want to say it's a few different things. One, our teachers putting in proactive measures to be able to help out the students, and how they respond to the students whenever they are actually having a particular moment. Like, how do you read that behavior? And one more thing I want to mention is that we have a partnership with One Common Unity, and they come in every single day and they work with the students, kind of like what Miss Valant was saying with the third graders, like have those lunch bunches. But his name is Mr. Nico, and he focuses on conflict resolution skills, coping. And if you find yourself feeling a certain type of way, what are some positive ways to be able to express yourself? And he really gives the student a safe place in order to express themselves and to be able to get whatever is bothering them at the moment, but also be able to express themselves in a positive way. So those are some of the things that's happening between grades 4 through 6.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Any questions? Now you guys will have all this information, so when you go on the tour, you'll be able to see it in action. Maybe it's better this way. Mr. Sellers, do you want to share a little bit about what's happening in 7th and 8th grade?
Hey, sure. Thanks a lot. I am Wallace Sellers, Assistant Principal for grades 7 and 8. It's a pleasure to talk with you guys this morning. I want to talk about something that I'm really excited about, and that it's something that's difficult sometimes to see in action. And that is the way our 7th and 8th grade teachers are allowing students to do the heavy lifting in the classroom. It's relatively easy to go into a classroom and just to get up and lecture, but how do you transfer those skills, that knowledge, to students in a way where they are doing the majority of the work? And I just want to talk a little bit about what's happening in some of the classrooms and the way that transference has taken place. So in Ms. Destine's ELA class, last week, they have started working with Lorraine Hansberry's Raisin in the Sun, and they've been introduced to the younger family, and they've started acting out early lines of the play. But the great thing is they have started to analyze not just the play itself in terms of the dialogue, but they've looked at the stage direction. They've looked at the setting of the play, and they have started to write about how those pieces, in addition to the dialogue, are really able to project and show to the reader or the listener what the author's intent is about. They are also preparing to compare and contrast the written drama with the audio play. And students are actually doing that work with Ms. Destine as the guide. In Ms. R's social studies class last week, students wrote about the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the first battle of the Revolutionary War. They discussed differences in attitudes between the Loyalists, Patriots, and British Parliament, and how those different attitudes shaped or went on to eventually shape the formation of the inception of the United States of America. And the students are doing the discussing, the students are doing the writing about that. In Ms. Maxwell's ELA class, they're still working in liberty and equality, and they are really focused on Frederick Douglass and the way Frederick Douglass's mentality changed from the time he was enslaved to the time that he was able to be free and his arrival in a free state. And so they're identifying the important events in Douglass's path to freedom. And in Ms. Ward's science class, last week, students collected evidence to support their claims comparing magnetic spacecraft launches. And tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, they're going to be creating models that track the differences in potential and kinetic energy. So really just doing a lot in math class. They're looking at dilation and translation and reflection, and students are required to explain not only how those things happen, but why they're important and how they can be used in practical applications in the real world. So just a lot of fantastic learning going on in all of the classrooms, and that main through line is that the students are actually doing the majority of the work as opposed to the teachers. I did also just want to briefly touch on something that Mr. Banks mentioned, and that is what our content leads are doing. This past week, Ms. Destine had all of the ELA teachers come together for the purpose of sharing one strategy that they have mastered and that they really do well, and also to share some work that students have done that show that that strategy has been effective. And so it gave teachers an opportunity to kind of talk with their fellow teachers about the things that are working really well for them, to critique some of those strategies, to take the things that they think work really well, and so to build their own abilities and their own strategy sets in the classroom. Finally, I think one challenge that we're facing is attendance, because our teachers can be very prepared and enthusiastic and skilled and knowledgeable, and students can come and be willing and able to learn, but if they don't come on a consistent basis, on time, and remain in class every day, it doesn't matter how well those other things are doing or how well they're in place, they won't be able to reach their full potential, because we need them to be in the classroom every single day for the entire time. So we are working on ways to encourage students to get into the building, remain in the building, and spend all of the time they have there actively learning in the classroom.
Thanks, Mr. Sellers. There was a piece in the Post last week too about chronic absenteeism in the city as a whole that I think is interesting, and I could share with folks if you haven't read it already. So we're not unique in that challenge, but it is something we are trying to address.
There was just a story this morning on NPR about that here in the city. So very much top of mind. And thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Sellers. I was going to actually send a question out to all of you, Ms. McCaskill, Ms. Ballant, Mr. Banks, Mr. Sellers. Thank you all for presenting today. It seems the topics I saw sort of rising to the top of challenges are social emotional learning and attendance. And I was going to ask, are there any other sort of challenges you're seeing that are sort of recurring that you guys are still working on, either throughout the entire school building or within your particular grade areas?
I know one they're all working on so heavily they might not even realize is the challenge, but math achievement, right? We know math achievement is low, and I think the whole focus this year has been on that. And so it might not be top of mind because you're like, well, that's just what we're doing. But I know that at every one of these grade levels, we're trying to figure out how we're filling those deficits. What else do you guys think?
Yeah, 100%. I do agree with you on that. Math is a top priority for us, especially with grades, with really all the grades, honestly. And that's part of the reason why I work so closely with Ms. Robinson, to make sure that whenever she's working with the teachers, that we are working with ways that's smart, and being able to figure out, when we're thinking about math as a whole, how are we developing math skills and actually number sense skills, and get away from just procedural thinking and understand more of like understanding concepts and numbers as a whole. And that's going to take some time, right? Because a lot of our students, whenever you ask them to solve a particular problem, they know, hey, if I take this and I cross this out and carry it over, right? If I were to ask a student what's the number representing in a tens place, right? Many of them are still learning that two that they call a 2 is actually a 20, right? And understanding that numbers really have a meaning, and be able to understand that as a whole. And so we're really focusing in on that. And one of the initiatives that we really pushed for this year is for teachers to have number talks within their actual intervention blocks. And so they'll open it up, in which they'll have a problem on the board, and then the students will have to solve that problem as many different ways as possible mentally in their heads. And then afterwards, they will actually go ahead and give the answers, and then share with the class how they were able to get there. And the whole point of it is about less of accuracy, but more so of like understanding the thinking. And so it could give the teachers the understanding, like, okay, I see where your misconception is coming from, so I know how to respond to that. Or I say, hey, you're really, really strong in this. Let me go ahead and share a more efficient strategy for you. And so, that's a work in progress, and it's going to take some time, but that's definitely a priority as well.
Yeah, and we've got great teachers in place this year. That was one of our big holes last year. So for us, while math is a struggle across the city, like we could really pinpoint a lot of our issues last year when we were struggling with our instructional, having an instructional team in math. But we brought in a really great group of folks that have been consistent this whole year, which is a huge success for us. And hopefully we're going to really start seeing in our outcomes for students.
Hi, can I quickly jump in? This is Abiola. I wanted to take the conversation back to the chronic absentees, and I apologize, I don't live in the city, so this is the first I heard of it. And so I was wondering, what incentives has the school put in place in order to address that? And how can we, as a board, work with you to strengthen that? Because I think it's a big issue, especially if you have all these programs in place and it's like you're having a party and nobody shows up. I mean, it sounds very frivolous, but at the end of the day, you want the kids to show up and you want them to show up happy. How are you addressing it? How can we help to strengthen that? Thank you.
Well, every student seems to work a little differently, which is like what one of the both challenges and successes we found. More broadly, we work as a monthly as a team, and it's not an incentive, but one of our strategies is really to create a human connection for each family. So it's either our assistant principals or it's our clinicians that get assigned to every family that is making that phone call, having that meeting, talking about what they're missing. That's a big piece for me, is that I want parents to know that like their kids aren't, things are happening here that you're missing out on if you don't come. And we want you to get to, enjoy them and learn and have your child find success. We do a perfect attendance raffle at the end of each month, which is just a small thing. And then once students are linked up with our clinicians, we have a lot of case management support. So our goal is that a family, if they need transportation support, is getting that. If they need just some support in thinking through if it's before and after care that they need, we have, a wide variety of supports that are available if we can get our families to utilize them with us. And I think mindset just shifted after the pandemic. We still have families who say like, oh, they'll do their work online today. And we're like, oh, that's not an option. Like we still have that conversation so frequently, or where they'll say something like, oh, they'll get the work done, but they're still missing out. And so what we're really trying to do is help figure out how we are sharing that. And I don't know, Mr. Sellers, what you would say to this, but our eighth graders, in the best way possible, have been very frustrated with their grades this fall. And our teachers are pretty non-negotiable on, you can come and work with me at lunch to make stuff up. You can come and work with me at recess. You can stay after school to make up work. But every day that you miss class, you are missing out on instruction and assignments. And so figuring out how we're helping them fill those gaps, but also seeing the consequence in a different way this year with the teachers that we have.
Absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned, the challenge is wanting students to be successful, understanding that there are different reasons why they may not have made it to school, but then having to deal with the very real circumstance that if you have missed an important step along the way, you can't move forward until you've learned and mastered that step. So how are you able to do that?
Yeah. So I think incentives is a great question. And we're constantly thinking about that. And if you have ideas, we welcome them. Individually for students, like some of it is, I think of one student who, we're live, so I won't share her name, but Ms. Crouch said 3 years ago, 1 month, and she was like, if you come to school every single day, I'm going to get you and we'll do running incentives like this, like a gift card to whatever your choice is of like PlayStation. So we were doing a lot of like Roblox points. That's what kids really liked at the time. And 1 month turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months, turned into 4 months. And for our kids who are older and have control over their transportation and control over their family obligations, that works for, right? These very individual incentivizing and goal setting. And so that's one of our, strategies, is really looking at each kid as their own kid, and saying, what feels doable? Is it just a week? Is it for you just saying like, can you get here every day this week? And how are we going to celebrate? Are we going to eat lunch together on Friday and talk about if it was hard or if it was easy to get here all week and if it, made a difference in class? So we have a lot of those individual lunches happening, celebrations for students who are doing the really challenging work. But a lot of our younger families, they have transportation troubles, they have work schedule troubles, they have family emergencies come up. And there's been a lot of illness too. Like, I don't know about all of you guys, but my family has struggled with, just fevers on top of COVID, on top of strep throat, on top of all these things. So it's also making sure families have resources, and our school nurses reaching out to them to help do some like care coordination, which a lot of our families need support with as well. So she's another resource, which is helping them find a pediatrician who has walk-ins. So you're not spending an entire day at the emergency room, but you're popping by quickly. Sorry, turn my phone. So all different angles. Does that answer your question? Or do you have any ideas that you feel like you've heard are happening?
Well, thank you. I mean, you guys are doing a phenomenal job given the circumstances. We're all living in a post-pandemic world, and the reality is different for everybody. So I can imagine that, there may be other factors involved. I guess I wasn't aware of it because I'm not as tuned into the city as I should be. And I apologize for that. I'm definitely going to think it through. If there are any articles that you can send me, because it sounds like it's a wider issue in Washington, D.C. And I wonder how the government of D.C. is addressing it, if there's any way we can align our thinking with them in order to make something happen for the kids. So thank you for your explanation.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we welcome ideas. I know more broadly as a city, we're also working on, and again, this isn't incentives, but on the systems that also support families once they are truant. And our city does not have the same systems in place that other states do. And we don't have truancy officers. And we have pretty limited support from Child and Family Services for students that do hit those thresholds that DC Council has voted are a required referral to Child and Family Services. So, we're participating on a city level too in those conversations. And really, last week we had a leaders meeting with the state superintendent, and myself and a lot of other schools were saying the same thing, which is we're really, really trying, but what else does the city have beyond our school building to support these families that are, qualifying as chronically absent or truant, which is 10 or more unexcused absences. Okay, well, we could let our assistant principals go unless we have other questions. I want to honor their snow day time. Guys, school's closed today, so everybody's at home and in funny different places.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you, everyone.
coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Meet you all.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've talked about each week, but now that you're kind of seeing them and hearing them talk with specificity about their grade levels, I think it's worth noting that we have a pretty unique school leadership structure at our school for a lot of reasons. Me and Rachel is one of them, and that's not a typical school leadership role. But additionally, we used to have more of like a dean of culture, behavior support, and then a dean of academics, right? And that's how a lot of schools do that. And over the years, we've really shifted down, and this year completely away from having specifically behavior focused leadership, and saying that we all are in this. And so what we've asked is our assistant principals, we increase the number of them and we decrease the number of grade levels that they serve. But so their goal is to know every teacher and every student and every family in their much smaller grade band. And they really do. They know all those families and they make those phone calls and they work with those students' parents. I think a parent meeting is happening with an assistant principal every single day in the main office, which is great. I hope also longer term will help with attendance too, is that we're just creating more connection and more continuity across grade levels with the person that's supporting your kid, whether it's an academic issue, a behavior issue, a issue with a peer. So that's kind of a unique thing about our school that we've really enjoyed this year, a new model for. Okay, let's cruise through these. Sorry, guys. So our mid-year data, we don't have a ton yet. We really wanted to share academic data with you, but it's happening right now. So it started last week, our NWA MAP data, which is the, academic assessment that we use as a benchmark through the year. The initial data coming in is, well, I think we actually have another slide for it, but this mid-year data is just sharing with you a little bit where we are enrollment-wise, attendance. So we are seeing a decline in attendance this year from last year, and we're working on it. Our truancy, so we have those students, we have put a ton of resources towards those highest level students, which were the kids who had 10 or more. And I do think we're seeing some positive impact there, that parents know who to call when they need support and are really submitting excused absence, so we know who's really sick versus who's not coming to school for other reasons. Our mid-year withdrawals is feeling like it's at a very normal clip. We've had students move to Maryland. We've had students decide that the travel is too far across the city, but it's been very minimal, the number of students who've changed mid-year for us. And as our commitment has been, our suspension and expulsion rate is at 0, because we're looking for alternative ways to support students if and when they're not meeting behavior expectations in our school building.
A quick question with the truancy and absenteeism, is there a particular grade that you're seeing that being a higher number than others?
That's a great question. And we do look at that. So every month when we look at every grade level. It moves around a little bit. What we find mostly is that it's cohort based. So when I look year after year, it is not that like 7th grade is always a problem, but it's that this group of 7th graders were also struggling in 6th grade and in 5th grade. And because we're a relatively small place, our sample pool is pretty small, right? So if we have only 40 students, 2 of them being out is going to really significantly impact the percentage of students who are at the school. When our goal is 94, you can't literally have anyone out some of the days. And that's very rare or far between. So right now, our pre-K is better than it's been in past years, but pre-K 3 is always a challenge. And that is one of the things that brings down that percentage. Families are just transitioning from understanding what's, a required daily attendance versus what's not. This year, when we've looked at it, it's our 6th grade team that is trying to figure out how to increase attendance, I believe, and I could be misspoken, but I could show you guys maybe next meeting too, like what that grade band breakout looks like, or send it to you guys. We're not seeing that it is consistently the same group though.
Thank you.
It is consistently the same students though. So if that, like kind of, gives us more insight. So this is our map data.
Attendance numbers, how do they stack up against the rest of the district?
Last year we were above the district average. Right now we are slightly below it. So that's our goal, is that we're hustling to always at least stay above it. And our pre-K numbers are typically much above it. So we actually see success there, even though we're frustrated by it. I think it's really interesting to also look at like how far kids are traveling. We have kids traveling pretty darn far to our school. And if you look at that in other schools, I think that's where we see some real through lines, is distance to school, which in a like a school choice environment is one of the downsides, but it gives kids access, right, to great schools in other parts of the city. So our goal is going to be to exceed, and we're going to have to work really hard through the end of the school year to beat that average. So map testing is very preliminary because it is still occurring right now, but so far we are seeing great results. We don't want to like jump to that conclusion, but we have got 87% of our ELA students tested and 57% of our math students tested right now. There is the opportunity for kids, when we go through and see if they've done like a quick click, to have them retest. So we'll also do some retests of some of the students who have participated, and that's just like learning for them on good test taking techniques, which is why we do that retesting. So far, we see like in particularly our 6th through 8th grade bands, really great increases from where we were, but obviously not high enough. So our goal is going to be to keep pushing and really identifying which students need what supports.
Can I just say something really quick? Hi, this is Sean. I really appreciate the opportunity that you all are giving the students to retest. And, I always like to speak from experience. My child is a clicker. She makes straight A's, but like when it comes to testing, she is going to click, click, click. And I was very disappointed. She came home and she said she was excited. She was like, "Yeah, Mom, I made the same score this year that I made last year." And I'm like, "So you didn't learn anything at all," is basically what you're telling me. And so then yesterday she was all bent out of shape because there was no school, and she was like, my teacher said I can retest. And so like that's one of the things that I was really like excited. We didn't get a chance to retest growing up, but hey, here we are. But I appreciate that because I know that she skips through the questions and she thinks she knows the answers and she doesn't check her work. And it's a really huge hindrance for her. So I just wanted to sort of say that I appreciate that opportunity for her to be able to retest. And I'm sure a lot of the other students do as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And thank you for sharing like that personal anecdote, because I think that helps us all see that like students want to retest. They're not happy with outcomes, and that's great. It means they want to work, right? And I had a couple of those students too. I was walking around on Friday, and it's definitely like assessment zone in the school right now. And I, will ask an individual student how they did, and they're like, and they're excited for this week. They knew that they had a planned retest date. With that said, we also had kids running down the hallway with their scores, and that is something like we want to keep encouraging, which is this culture of just like learning and celebration. And some of our students were just like, I wish Rachel was on here just to share with us the number of kids who had it written on a piece of paper, running into their office and like wanted just to celebrate with an adult who cares about them is wonderful. Right.
Yes, they did. I can speak on that as well. I've probably seen 20 of those because I'm really involved in the school. So I know almost everybody's testing scores, who increased, who decreased, the papers, the notes. I've gotten text messages from parents. They're really excited.
Yeah. And like kids are not scores. And we always tell them that, right? Like they matter either way, but what a great way to be able to definitively celebrate the work you've been doing, right? And see where that's impacted you. And if you look on the far right, this is a big chart, right? A lot of numbers, a lot of different things. But on the far right column, Alexandra's circling for us here. To me, this is like the one thing we really celebrate. This is our growth and the number percent of our kids who are above the 50th percentile. So it is a percentage of a percentile, so that's confusing. But what we also see compared to last year in the winter, how much bigger those numbers are. So if you look at like our 3 to 5 math map results, that's the second row down, 75% of our kids are growing faster than half their peers. That's great, right? And it's showing us that we really are making big headway. And it's about 20 percentage points more than last year. So something is working, right? We're seeing more growth than we saw before. And we know that our kids are going to have to grow a lot faster if we want to make up these achievement gaps. And so that's always our goal. Is the goal can't be 1 year of growth. The goal has to be multiple so that we know kids are catching up for our kids who are behind. And on our tour with Blueprint and City Tutor, it was really neat to see. That's not data we're showing here, but Blueprint is their group that has brought in 5 math tutors that work all day long in our building. And they have kids, so their assessment is on a monthly basis. Their goal is that kids are growing 1.5 months in every month, because that's how they want to bridge the gap. Their kids on average at PSP were growing anywhere from 1.8 to 4.1, their grade levels. So it's amazing. Like they're seeing on a monthly basis those amounts of growth far exceeding a typical month of growth, which is what we're going to need to see.
Kelly, is there any prep? I mean, Sean brought up an interesting point about her daughter being an excellent student, but just being a bad tester. Is there any sort of tutoring around how you take a test, or any, to help students just know how you sit down and take this kind of a test?
Yeah. I mean, that's what MAP is, right? And that's actually kind of our goal, is that's why we do these benchmark assessments too, is that this is how they learn. And this is how they see like, oh, look what happened when I did this. So yes, our teachers are definitely talking about it, particularly at our older grades where kids, can be a little more strategic and skip questions they don't know and go back to them and like where to spend their time. So yes, they are doing some of that. That's really one of the goals of our lab groups too, where kids are meeting in smaller numbers of students. It's where they're taking their assessments too. So in these smaller lab groups, they take their assessments and then they're going to talk as a group about like, what could you do in addition to building knowledge to do better next time. And so, it's that fine balance, people, it's an ugly thing to say you teach to the test, but the truth is like kids need to learn how to test. They need to learn how to show their knowledge, because that's how the world works. So we're always working on that. All right, let's get through these last 2. Man, guys, I don't think we thought this was going to be a whole hour. But we are looking at finance and compliance real quick. The only new contract we have is not really we're going to see it on our books, so I want to share with you. Kone LLC, our elevator repair, has been fully covered by insurance, but it is going to be the insurance company has paid us, and then we are paying that elevator company. It's a $75,000 repair. Ms. Drummond, who's been in the school, has felt the burden, I'm sure, too, of our broken elevator. It was our food service provider's vendor that broke it, so it's not our insurance that's impacted, but it was multiple degrees of separation, which is why it has taken so painfully long. So it's not a cost on the school, but it has been a long process that they are finally working on. So that's our new contract that we'll just see come through. And then some of our renewals that are happening that don't require board action are just Roots Landscaping. So they've done our landscaping for years, and our snow removal and Amplify. And Amplify has joined our higher cost contracts because they have slowly bought more and more of the curriculums that we use, and that's often what happens in education. But so Amplify is now who we buy all of our ELA curriculums from, in addition to our science curriculum and our reading assessment DIBELS, which is compliant with the new DC Council dyslexia laws. So I think the only thing we could make a motion to move on is the Kone elevator repair. Exactly how that works for you guys when we're not actually paying for it, it's funny, but it'll come through our books as a very large contract.
Okay, so we should do it anyway. It has to happen. Do I have a motion to approve the Coney elevator repair bid contract?
I motion to approve the contract.
And do you have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Yay.
Aye.
All right. Wonderful, approved.
All right. Alexandra, do you want to? Okay. So enrollment season has just begun. We are working towards next school year now. Our biggest focus is pre-K and trying to figure out how we increase those numbers. So far, things are looking good. Our initial applications are up 28%, and our top rankings are increased, which is great. So pre-K 3 is who we have to track down. One of the things we're working on is getting a childcare subsidy license right now so that we could even potentially serve younger students and create a pipeline just like we do for teachers. So that's one of our works in progress. We're working with a grant partner agency with OSSI to potentially open up a twos room, which would be entire child subsidy. And it's what our parents are saying, like they need a resource that helps their whole family. So I just want you guys to know we have a few things in progress right now where we're trying to figure out what our families need to attract them best. And then more robust before and after care for our youngest students. And that's two of the things that we're really targeting to attract our youngest families. Which we have had a lot of bumps in the journey of our before and after care as we lost prior grants. But we have a couple providers now, but we want to go back to being a self-provider for those youngest students because it's what our parents want. So that's going to be our work for next year and what we're sharing with families about why they should come to PSP. So you can see the percentages of applicants. It's very similar to prior years. We're going to be really hustling for the month of February to get our applications in by March 1st. And then what we'll also do is keep enrolling through the whole summer. So where we find those gaps. If you look at the fourth column over anticipated seats available, that's how many seats we're trying to fill, knowing that some of our current students, just with the current trends that we've had for a while, will probably either move out of state or transition to another school. But we're targeting about 120 new students for next year, which is very similar to this year and the prior year. Alexandra, do you want to click to our next one for me? There we go. So finance committee, our finances are in line with the last report we made to you. We have not had another meeting since we had our last board meeting. So we will have that soon. The audit did wrap up and it has been submitted. There were no findings. Our finance committee reviewed it and our 990 preparation is in progress. I owe the finance committee more information on these investment policy summaries. So that's my work to do. But Katie, any other finance updates from your end? Or no, and also we've got our new finance member too, Andrew.
Nothing from me.
Okay.
I'm good too.
Since Sydney, I still didn't see her pop on the call, but the governance update is that we have a candidate for our new parent member, and Sydney is going to be reaching out to this potential new parent member to interview her, and then we'll present her to us as a board to vote on. So that vote will probably happen at the next board meeting, but we will hopefully soon have a second parent board member on, so Sean doesn't have to be the only one representing the parents on the board.
Good morning, everyone. This is Brandon again. Actually, Sydney and I talked, so I'll be doing
Good.
that interview this week. So we're looking forward to everything else continues, as you said, having those things in place in time for the next meeting. But that's on tap for this week to schedule the interview and have that done so we can report out to the group.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandon.
I think Sydney emailed you, Vanette. You may have not seen the email. So a couple of other things from the governance committee she wanted me to put on people's radar. We were looking at the numbers for the committees for the board, and they're a little unbalanced. So we have 7 people on the academic performance committee, I think 6 or 5 on finance, and governance maybe 5 or 4. The numbers may be transposed for governance and finance, but to have 7 on the academic committee is a lot. And so we're asking for someone to volunteer to move to one of the other committees. Excuse me. So if you are willing to do that, please reach out to Vanette or Sydney and let us know. Second thing, and this is in alignment with reaching out to the new parent board member, the governance committee wanted to discuss reopening a recruiting window starting in February, as we need to prepare or have on our radar that we need 2 DC residents lined up for the next academic year. And so at this point, the committee is just looking for the board's agreement and support in helping to recruit those individuals. And it will also be helpful if once Brandon speaks to the parent, the potential parent member, after that conversation happens, if we're able to like vote them in at the next incoming meeting, that would be great for onboarding purposes. I think that's all she sent.
Great.
Anything else, Vanette, or anybody else from the governance that we needed to put out there to the committee?
No, that was the biggest one that we discussed. It's 7 on academic, 5 on governance, and 4 on finance committee at the moment. So definitely want a few other people to join. Definitely finance and as well as governance. And
I'd just say one more quick thing. Also this week, you'll get correspondence from me. Well, it'll also be in tandem with adding new board members, but also updating bio. I'm going to give you a few different options for updating the board page to have quick bios and headshots, just to kind of make it in tandem, in line with other board presentations for front-facing collateral. And then on the quicker side, that isn't as germane to the governance committee, but just in general, I just did an event this weekend for MLK weekend, and I had listed Perry Street, their wish lists, as the philanthropic recipient. So there might be an influx of orders. I know a few have gone in already. And Kelly, I think you're the listed contact for one of the lists, and then the other one is for the Spirit Squad. So you will likely see more things coming in, but that's where it's coming from. So it's just
Thank you.
No worries.
Well, and that's your timing is great because we had a big AKA event yesterday at the school, day of service, where they organized our parent resource room, and so we are back ready and a little bit more together to receive all those donations. So thank you.
Excellent, my pleasure.
The other work too, just worth noting that I think we'll share with everybody, is Alexandra has been working hard with a little help from me to do the onboarding materials, which was a request from the governance committee, so that we really had a full slideshow that linked to a lot of those important documents that gave background information on the school and authorizer information. So it is a robust presentation that we'll share with everybody. And I think it'll be a great resource in addition to being an onboarding material, so that people will see that soon once the governance committee has taken a look at it. All right. I don't
have any updates for the academics committee. I, however, did send out an email this morning requesting a meeting for February 13th. So if everyone could follow up as if they can make it, because this meeting will be in person. And connect well or complement well with some of the discussion that happens there around support services and math outcomes for the school. That's all I have.
Okay. Next meeting is March 19th, 9 a.m. Do we still want to make that virtual, or do we want to try to do that in person, since today's in-person meeting ended up having to be virtual? I'm putting that out to the board as well as the staff at the school. Maybe you don't want us there in March.
We'll be there, so it's always up to you guys. Well, I guess unlike today is the one day that is not true. I can.
So others,
We could either, we could switch that, Vanette, and the other opportunity Alexandra and I were just talking a little bit about was like making a tour event an opportunity for
a
folks.
separate one. That would be great as well. So yeah, let's do that then. If we can do a event to actually towards school as we plan to do today, we can leave this as virtual and have that tour on another day between now and then.
Okay,
I
great.
think it would be good to have not necessarily a evening board meeting, but an opportunity for the board to sort of engage with the parents, because that's something I hear a lot too. Is like no one knows who the board members are. The parents don't know. Some of the teachers, I think it would be a good opportunity for us to sort of meet the parents, because being really involved in the school, I know a lot of the parents, but I know a lot of the events too that most of the parents will attend. So it would be good to have some of the board members to attend so that they can see faces and have an understanding, because I've had the question so many times, well, what exactly does the board do? So I think it would be good for us to find some sort of way to engage more with the parents and just like kind of having some of the discussions that we had today, sharing the importance of having your kid come to school every day, and I know that's not something necessarily the board does, but just conversations.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Are there, can you guys, not you necessarily, Sean, although Sean, you seem to have like a finger on the pulse of like what events the parents attend, but be great to know what are some of the upcoming events that you really feel there would be good parent attendance at that we would be welcome to join.
Okay.
The other piece that I think you just mentioned briefly, Mr. Maju, is like, what does the board do? And having you all feel equipped to answer that question is some of the work that Alexandra put into the slides for onboarding. And to me, that makes me when you just saying that made me all the more glad that we're putting these materials together, because I think that's a great question to be able to answer. And it's not always what people expect. The work of boards is so high level and is so strategic and big picture and is not in the operations of day-to-day school, that I think equipping you all with the answer to that question is great work for us to do together as a group. So maybe as we get those materials to the governance committee, it's also something we could just add time to the next board meeting on, which is like how, in addition to, yes, being a face that people know, I think anytime we broaden community is great, right? And people know who the different players are in anything, but also helping every board member, like you, Mr. Drummond, be able to answer that question when parents ask you that.
Good idea. All right. Anything else on upcoming meetings and visits to the school? Okay, there's no.
Last thing, if it could be possible to share like the school calendar in terms of highlighting those events so that we can look, so we don't all have to come because our schedules are different, so we can decide that we wanted to come. And I'll let you know, Kelly, if I ever decide I want to come at some point. But it would be good to have like a bird's eye view of what's happening when. I know we already talked about it, but I just wanted to make sure we understood. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that reminder, Abiola. Anything else? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.